Hello, ANCAP Radio, and welcome to another episode. Today, we have a very special treat in store for you. One that I know, just reflecting on the past, we'll say 5 decades or so. This is a keeper. This is one that, when it was initially recorded, can still be streamed, listened to, played today. And if we didn't give the context that it was recorded, in I believe 1978 to be specific, you wouldn't even know. And so this is Doug Casey on the Greg Donahue Show. I'm also happy because if you guys haven't been to ancapradio.com yet, that is our official website. It's where we archive all of our episodes. And now we can say that this interview has not only been archived on YouTube, where you can go find it. If you just literally search the title here, you can find the video version of this interview. But now we're going to have it for our own records, our own keeping. So really looking forward to diving into this one. Again, it's Doug Casey on the Donahue Show back November. I said 1978. There we go. 1980, right in front of us. Yeah, here we go. We're going to go ahead and start this one up. Thank you for tuning in. Again, make sure you hit the like button, the retweet button, get this one out in front of as many people as you can. And let's get into it.
He's a financial analyst who says that a major economic crash in the United States is inevitable. And in so saying, his book has become the #1 best-selling book in America. But the author says, if we're smart, it's a great time to get rich. The book is titled Crisis Investing, and we'll meet its author, Douglas Casey, on our next show. Join us.
We find out whether you're financially... The best place to put your money today is in the stock market. I'm not clapping. The best place to put your money is in real estate. Very interesting. The best place to put your money, you're better off to live in a condo than to rent. The best place to put your money is in gold. Two friends out there? No. Listen. Douglas R. Casey is here. This man has written the #1 best-selling book in America, not just on the bestseller list class. This book has enjoyed the #1 position on the New York Times list and others for several weeks now. It's titled Crisis Investing. You've probably read about the book if you haven't read the book. Mr. Casey is making a lot of money telling America that it is going into the dumper. That's a little flip, but it's pretty close to it, isn't it?
Well, Phil, what we're going to have, first of all, to clarify that, we are going to have a depression. It's going to make the last depression look like a technical correction. It's going to look insignificant by comparison. So let me get that out front immediately. That's absolutely true. What I'm making on the book, because that's always brought up, is completely insignificant.
Well, it's none of our business, too. It wasn't accusatory, Mr. Casey.
No, I know that.
Some of my best friends have written books.
No, but what I was going to say is what I'm making on the book is completely insignificant relative to what I've made on the investments in the book, and especially what those investments are going to be doing over the next few years. And that's the point.
Yeah. In effect, you say that when is this depression going to hit? 83?
Well, it depends on how we define a depression, but actually the depression's already started. If we say a depression is a period of time when most people's standard of living goes down, then it's been going on for a couple of years. And from this point, it's just going to get worse and worse, and then it's going to accelerate. And when it really starts accelerating, that's when you're going to see the banks collapse, you're going to see bond defaults and so forth. And at that point, most people are going to recognize that the depression is here. But It's already started.
And employment will go to?
Oh, it's hard to say. I don't list unemployment as a separate figure. I list in a chart in the book, unemployment is actually people that are unemployed plus employed by the government. Those are true unemployed.
You have a very strong conservative philosophy woven through your book.
No, that's untrue.
Well, it's been suggested what we've got here is a political book with a financial ribbon on it.
There's a lot to that because this depression is being caused by politics, bureaucrats, and so forth. So you've got to have a political philosophy in order to understand what's going on, but it is not conservative. I'm not voting for Ronald Reagan. Let me say that right now.
Okay, so you're...
I didn't say I was voting for Jimmy Carter either.
Who are...
Now nobody likes me.
Yeah. Who are you? We should say that we're taping one day in advance of the election, for those of you watching us after the election. We don't know who won.
Will we change the course of history with this conversation?
Well, no, but you brought it up. So if you're not voting for Reagan, for whom will you vote?
Well, first of all, I'm not voting. No, that's interesting. No, let me attack that. That is one of the foremost shibboleths and illusions of American society, that you have to vote. I think there are 4 good reasons that you ought to seriously consider it. I know that you hear all kinds of movie and TV stars tell you on the air that you should vote. Doesn't matter how you vote, but vote. Well, I'm here to say that voting in itself could be considered an immoral act. Why? Because when you're voting, all you're doing is deciding who decides who gets whose money. And I don't believe in that as a moral principle. I believe my money is mine, your money is yours, and that's none of the politicians' business, and that's what they're all about. So from that point of view, I think voting is wrong. Another thing is, it just gets your name into another government computer bank, and you can't use that. Third thing is, I think it's a misallocation of your time. By the time you register, go down to the polls and so forth, I think watching Hollywood Squares might be more fun. The fourth thing is it encourages them. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like to encourage them. But if I voted, I would vote for Ed Clark, the Libertarian. Thank you very much.
Your speech about not voting is
I had to get that out.
yeah, well, okay, that's fine. This is America, and you're allowed to say that. The point that must be made that your speech about not voting is about as patriotic as your book.
No, it's
because you're suggesting in the book that you've even got the addresses of foreign banks where we might put our money. I mean, you really are running away from the good old American republic as fast as you can in many, many ways.
Now, Phil, that's not true. What I'm trying to do is what I meant to say by people shouldn't vote, and what I'm trying to say in that book is it's time for the average American to retake control of his own destiny and his own life. See, the trouble is that we've got right now is that everybody's looking for somebody else to bail them out of their problems. They want the government. They think that by voting for some politician, he's going to make everything better, make all the bad stuff go away. And if the politician doesn't, my union will make things better, or maybe my employer will make things better. Forget about all of them. You've got to make it better yourself. You've got to retake control of your own life and destiny, and that's what that book is about.
All right,
that's why I'm telling people not to vote.
I understand. Let's talk about some of the ways in which we can reassume control of our own destiny. You think we ought to have half of our wealth in gold?
I'd say that that's a prudent course. A couple of years ago, I was telling people to put more than that into gold because it was a superb speculative opportunity. Yeah. Right now, as we're speaking, gold is not so much a good speculation as it is insurance. It's kind of a financial blanket that you can hide under. It's insurance of the most basic form. So That's why you should have a lot into it. Because when this financial tidal wave washes over the landscape, it's going to completely overturn.
As of this date, November 3rd, 1980, gold is at what, 6 something?
Six. I didn't get the quote this morning before I came.
Give him a ballpark. 660?
640, something like that.
And you have predicted that it's going to go to $1,600 an ounce.
Oh, I predicted it's going to go to $3,400 an ounce or more. And that's within the next 5 years, certainly.
$3,400 for an ounce of gold?
Sure.
You know, I've got to say that if it ever gets to that, and I'm not going to argue with you, how can you do that? We'll accept your crystal. But for gold to sell at $3,400 an ounce is a worldwide statement that the whole globe is going to hell. What that means is that nothing made by man, no company, no technology, no idea, no service is good enough or reliable enough for our own accumulated wealth to be deposited in.
No,
and therefore, let's go with the
no.
natural resource of gold.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Phil. I'm just saying this. It's that the dollar is being inflated faster and faster and faster, okay? And the dollar is becoming a hot potato. Nobody wants to hold on to it because they know that the U.S. government has taken on trillions of dollars of obligations, and the only way they can meet those obligations, Social Security and so forth, is literally by printing up dollars in a printing press. Now, that's why in the next few years, you're going to see a wholesale panic out of dollars and into an asset that's not the government's liability, okay? In other words, those dollars, you have to trust your politicians when you hold on to them. You have to trust them to be prudent and frugal, and that's just a silly bet. That's why gold is going up.
Well, why don't I just buy IBM or AT&T? What's wrong with the stock market?
Well, in the book, I list 13 reasons, any one of which is sufficient for the stock market to crash to about a third of its present level, okay? But all of which are out there on the, like time bombs on the landscape.
Right.
It's my opinion that although the stock market should go to 300, it's probably going to go to 3,000 before it does that.
On the Dow.
That's right.
And we're at 900 now.
That's
plus.
right. And why? It's because it's grossly overpriced right now by a lot of different means that we can say what's overpriced. But it's probably going to triple because there's going to be a wholesale panic out of bank accounts, out of cash value life insurance, out of mortgages, out of bonds. And people are going to want to get into equity of some type, something. And that means the stock market for most people. That's one. Second thing is the U.S. government's going to put on foreign exchange controls so that all the money that's going out of the country so people can diversify themselves politically is going to have to stay here. And people are going to buy stocks for that reason. So things change.
You anticipate stringent government import controls on, for example, Japanese automotive products?
Yes, I think that's quite reasonable to anticipate. The government's solution to this problem, the Depression, which is a problem of the government's creation, is going to be to grab the U.S. economy in a stranglehold and throttle it to death. That's going to be their solution. Yeah. They're going to want more controls, not less.
Yeah, without suggesting that the United States government could not use some belt tightening and some improvement. Okay, isn't your indictment of the government rather simplistic? And is it fair to say that the government is exclusively responsible for our problem?
Yeah, I think it's entirely fair, and I'll tell you why. Actually, it's something more basic than the government, but the government is the main reason. There are 4 ways that the government relates to the average American individual. None of them are very favorable. First of all is by taxing him. That reduces his standard of living. Secondly is by borrowing things in the marketplace. When the government borrows money, you can't borrow it to consume. General Motors can't borrow it to produce. Third is by regulating, and all regulating does, it has no favorable effects whatsoever. Well, it creates distortions in the marketplace for speculators like me, but all regulating does for the average person is not let him buy what he wants to or sell what he wants to. And of course, the fourth thing the government does for the average individual is inflate his currency, which makes it silly for him to save. And that's what's causing the Depression.
Okay, but this again, Mr. Casey, believe me, I'm not suggesting that what you say is not worthy of our consideration, but you really don't. You sound polemic when you say things like government regulate. You going to throw out the FDA? Should we be able to take whatever we want? Should doctors be able to prescribe whatever they think is good for us? Right. Tell that to the people who took thalidomide. Tell that to the women who were the first guinea pigs for the anovulin pill.
Thalidomide was approved by the FDA. The problem, Phil, let me get back to this basic point. The average individual today and the average everybody today, corporation and everything, has ceded all of his responsibility for his own life and his own actions to the government. He'll do whatever the government says. He won't do what they won't say. And I believe that the only way that you can be safe in the world is by taking responsibility for your own actions. And that's what the government deprives the average citizen of. And that's the most dangerous thing in society today.
Right. You have to wonder, though, how many multimillionaires today came from parents who worked for the WPA or who came out of the Roosevelt years and who were brought up they were able to get their hand on their bootstrap because government helped them. This isn't to say that...
That's not true.
Not true.
Not true.
All right. Everybody made something of themselves.
See, what government has done is it's never created new wealth, okay? All it does is holds a gun to the head of some people and tells them they have to give some money to other people. Now, that's not productive.
You feel that the fast food chains and franchises are going to be the first to die, financially speaking.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I say that. It's
McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut, Burger King. All those folks are going to really, they're going to take it on the chin, are they?
First of all, I happen to like those fine organizations. I think they turn out a good product at a reasonable price. So I disagree with Ralph Nader. I don't think they're going to die for the same reason Ralph Nader thinks they're going to die. I think they're in a lot of trouble because the whole country's been living above its means. And I think that just as during the last Depression, a man had to ask his wife to give him a haircut, okay? Barbershops are another thing they're going to go under. Just like a man's going to have to go home and cook his own food because he's not going to be able to afford the gasoline to get in his car and drive to those places.
And pay the service, the charge of the labor that it took to put the Kentucky Fried Chicken in.
We're going to suffer a decline in our standard of living. And a smart individual now who wants to safeguard his own and his family's welfare, and that comes number one on the shopping list, will start getting into a way of thinking where he'll see what's happening and positioning himself so he's not going to be washed away by what's coming.
Let me get back to the stock market. You're saying that the stock market should go to 300, but you think it's going to go to 3,000. So therefore, let's all buy some stock.
It's a speculator's game. It's a speculator's game, and you've got to learn how to be a speculator. So you're right. One thing that I am saying is this: is that you're a heck of a lot better off in stocks than you are going to be in bonds or mortgages or things of that nature, and a lot better off than you're going to be in real estate.
I don't know. It seemed to be I'd be safer to have the sewer bond for a municipality than I would be for a company, especially since we've got this big depression coming. And how can you have a big depression and an advancing stock market at the same time? They're mutually exclusive ideas.
No, they're not at all, because one of the worst depressions on record was Germany in 1923. You remember when in Germany in 1923 they'd show pictures of housewives going down to the store with their money in a bushel basket and the things they bought in their purse?
Right.
Okay. The stock market in Germany in 1923 went up by a factor of 10 in the worst month of the inflation. But that's what happens in a speculative environment caused by inflation.
I wasn't there in the 30s in Germany, but and I don't know what was in their Dow Jones Industrial Average. But
what I'm trying to say is this: is you all heard during the 1960s the economists, so-called quote unquote, saying, "We have the economy in control. We're going to fine-tune it. We're going to make everything right. Don't worry about a thing." Well, now those same people have to recognize it's totally out of control. And during the 80s, the financial markets are going to be going up and down like an elevator with a lunatic at the controls. And so the fact that the stock market could triple and crash, all those things, you have to think like a speculator, which is too bad because most people aren't oriented that way. And it's not really good for the society, but I don't make the game.
Okay, well, that's my next question. In a very real way, you may be making the game. We can only speculate on what kind of quarterback role you're playing in today's economy, given the fact that this is the number one selling book in America. The more people that read this, we can assume, the more people are going to buy gold. So, I can't wait to see what happens to gold after your appearance on this program makes its way across the country. I'm not kidding. Have you thought about that? And do you feel any responsibility to hear? You're saying the sky is falling. Buy gold. Well, maybe we all will. Well, there'll be a gold rush.
Well, the thing to remember is this, first of all, it's that I'm not prophesying doom. What I'm doing is I'm telling people how reality is structured. And the people that are, let's say, the people that want to take control of their own lives, that do have self-respect, that do want to understand how the world works, are the ones that will position themselves properly, and they'll become a new class of millionaires. A new class of millionaires. And that's who I want to see created.
Okay, but you sound like it's a rather paternalistic kind of. When I was a boy, son, I worked hard, and it really does fail to account for all those folks who, because of the capitalists' inability to affect a system that will result in an equal distribution of wealth, results in a lot of people who are not able to get any kind of hand or finger into that big money pie.
Well-made point. And the reason for that, Phil, is that we don't have a capitalist system in this country. It's called a capitalist system, but the government is so thoroughly immersed and intertwined and all that. This is rapidly becoming a socialist system where you need the approval of some bureaucrat and you need a tax grant in order to get into business and so forth. And that's not what made this country great.
You've got a chapter in here which tells your story. In fact, I understand your publisher wanted you to take it out.
That's true.
It's kind of a polemic, if I may say. I mean, it's a parable. It's a speech. Here's your final paragraph. Bear in mind that a love of America, you say, and its ideals does not need to indicate a love of America's government and the goals of its administrators. So what you're in effect doing is you're giving America permission to disagree violently with their government and not to acquiesce to some of its statements, especially its financial ones.
Well put.
Okay, here's what troubles me about that, Mr. Casey. The same wealthy fat cats who are giving us permission to turn our backs on a government that delivers unsound economic policy and too much regulation are the same people who will accuse young men who don't go to a war the government calls as being unpatriotic.
I don't believe in the warfare state, and I don't believe in the welfare state. Either one. Throw them both out.
You also handmade knives and what? What was the other?
Ancient Greek and Roman coins. Now, see, everybody takes that out.
Well, we want to know. I mean, you got.
I have a.
Just give us some free advice, and we'll all be rich, and we won't bother you anymore, Mr. Casey.
I have a chapter in the book on collectibles, which you're referring to, where I say that people are buying things like toilet paper, used barbed wire, electrical insulators, things like that, trying to collect them, to beat inflation.
Yeah.
And I say that most things that people are collecting have no value across time. They're created by companies that are creating collectibles. They're not. So I'm telling people to get out of collectibles, and those are just two examples of things that I think might be good.
Okay, we got a break here. You rent, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't own a condo.
Not now. There's a time for everything, and this is the top of the greatest boom in history, American real estate.
The top. So you're saying we've hit the peak, have we, in real estate?
There's a time to buy and a time to sell, and the time to buy was 10 or 15 years ago, and the time to sell is now.
Well,
it's all cyclical.
Why can't we make... Why can't we make
serious?
Why can't we make that point about gold? I mean, how do you know real estate's at its peak and gold isn't?
Well, both of them have gone up tremendously over the last 10 years.
Gold was $35 an ounce in 1970.
Yep.
630, 40, 50 bucks today, and it went to, where'd it go? 9 something, didn't it?
Yeah, almost 900. That's right.
Okay, we'll give you a shot here. He rents. Douglas R. Casey. How do you think a man like me got to be a man like me? Crisis investing. How do you feel about this? We hope you'll join us.
Yes. Mr. Casey, do you agree with Ruff to take a bag of gold and a bag of silver and go to the country?
I'd say take your bag of gold or silver, put it in the safest place that you can think of. Ruff is a very prudent man. We're in agreement on most things. Good advice.
Yes.
That's right. Remember, gold is the foundation to everything else you're trying to do. You don't want money in a bank. You want it in the form of gold coins. Gold can't be inflated out of existence. Can't be defaulted on. That's
but it can also drive you nuts if you're going to put it under your mattress. And
it may be safer there than in a bank, Phil.
I used to hear that you should put your money into diamonds. I haven't heard you mention that word. Why?
That's because I don't believe in putting your money into diamonds. Diamonds are an area that you're dealing with people that have been in the business and their families have been in it for hundreds of years. I couldn't tell a diamond from a piece of glass. Most people couldn't, and you shouldn't buy and invest in things that you don't understand. So that's why I'd say that you should stay out of diamonds. Just too many people are selling it.
Mr. Casey, I understand you're suggesting investing in Swiss life insurance and taking money out of the banks. Don't you think that will help cause the banks to collapse much faster?
Probably true. Yes, that's right. But the point to remember is if the banks were sound and solid, if everybody withdrew their money out of the banks at once and the banks were solid, the bankers would just have a perfect reason to take a 2-week vacation. People would see there was nothing to worry about and they'd put their money back in. Today, if that happens, the banks would collapse totally. But that's not even the biggest problem with the banks. There are much more serious problems. I didn't make the problem. I'm just telling you about it.
More serious?
The loans that these banks are making to third world and second world countries. They've loaned $60 billion to the Soviet Union, $50 billion to Brazil, $20 billion to Poland, more to Zaire. Those loans are never going to be repaid, and that is the hard-earned money of the average American worker that's been loaned to those foreign governments.
You say gold is going up to $3,000. I understand 30 years ago or 40 years ago, with one $20 gold piece, you could buy a whole car full of groceries in the trunk. Today, with one $20 gold piece, you could buy a whole carload of groceries in the trunk. So how did it go up?
True. That's right. See, it's not so much that gold is going to go up. It's that the dollar is going to go down, and it's going to go down at accelerating rates. We're on a roller coaster ride at this point.
Is the caller there? Mr. Casey on the line.
Yes, Mr. Casey and Mr. Donahue. My husband has lost his job. We're on the brink of losing our good credit standard. We're going to sell our home. We don't have any faith left in the government. I don't have any belief left in any of the politicians. They're all propped up before the TV cameras and propped up with what they're supposed to say because we're to be brainwashed to believe the system is still working for us when it is not. People do not have a voice anymore. Decline of living is already here. I am struggling with 2 jobs and my husband's unemployment to take care of my 4 children. And the American people have their heads in the sand because they're afraid. And Americans can love their country and not like what their politicians can do, but we are not given a choice. And after I sell my home, what should I do with my money? Just go buy gold? No rent?
You know, you're asking me a very serious question, and I don't want to give you a flip, cavalier answer because I'd have to know more about who you are and so forth. First of all, only you can make that decision. I don't want to make it for you, okay? Because I want you to retake control of your own life and destiny and not rely upon the advice because I'm giving it, okay?
Right.
So
I'd like to talk to... I'm sorry, I don't want to...
No, I was going to say...
You'd rather talk to you than me.
Well, yeah, just let me say one other thing on that. I think it's of absolutely critical importance that what you do is start understanding why inflation is here, why the world is the way it is, and read some books and think about these things. So you've done some pretty good analysis so far, but do more of it.
One more point. Boy, you really sound like you're in the trenches here.
I am.
Yeah.
I want to dig my way out, and
I understand that. But I think while you're mulling it over, and it's easy to preach here, and I don't want to do that. And I understand your feelings. You know, to watch these TV spots is really discouraging. I will end corruption, you know, and then the meaningless ones of the guy with the coat over the shoulder, you know, walking through the woods. I am a man who knows. I am a man who. I know who I am because I am a man who knows who he is. You know, this isn't funny because the cumulative result of all of this baloney is a real crisis of confidence in this whole. And the thing that kills me about that is that I really think this country is a tremendous idea in civilization.
Exactly.
We don't appreciate what a wonderful, the Constitution is a magnificent document. And we are so, but it will not pick your garbage up on time. It will not take the potholes out of your street.
Now, Phil, you're absolutely correct on the first part. America is perhaps the greatest idea of Western civilization.
In the history of man,
yes,
I really believe
no
that.
question about it. Why? Because it gave the average guy a chance to go as high as he wanted, but he had to fall as low as if he didn't, okay?
Yeah.
As far as picking up the garbage is concerned, in a free market society, anything that needs doing will be done for a profit. If it can't be done for a profit, it ain't worth doing. And there are entrepreneurs out there who will pick up the garbage for you. I don't need the government to do that. And I resent being forced to pay taxes to have somebody else's garbage picked up.
One other point for this woman who's about to... don't you feel some responsibility for how we got here?
Do I?
Yeah. I mean, when was the last time you went to a PTA meeting? When was the last time you stuck a sign for a candidate of your choice on a telephone pole? The environmentalists and the aside from them, because it is... But, you know, when was the last time you stuffed an envelope or went door to door, did all of those nitty-gritty, unattractive things to get somebody that you cared about elected?
Done a lot of those nitty-gritty things. In fact, most of the people in my neighborhood where we live, we marched to save our neighborhood school for our children because they cut the schools. And we've stuffed envelopes for other people. And I believe in different causes for different rights, which I won't go into because they're mine, you know. But I do those things. And I'm a good person. And where are the people running the government who are supposed to run it for us instead of their fat pocketbooks? Have you ever seen a Washington, D.C. congressional menu that the congressmen eat? Lobster and shrimp and other things for $2, a steak for $2. You know, we go to Ponderosa and get pounded beef for $2.
Just one more question. Would you vote for a candidate who promised to reduce defense spending?
No. No,
Well, now, how can you have it? How can you have increased defense spending and a reduction in taxes?
Well, why don't the politicians quit eating shrimp and lobster at $2, and why don't we quit fattening their pocketbooks with salaries which are unbelievable and sending them on vacations and trips with their wives?
Yeah.
Why don't we do better things with our money? We have poor people that can't even eat.
Hang on.
Mr. Casey says he's going to vote for Ed Clark, who proposes the
I didn't
legalization,
say I was
or if you would vote, you would vote for Ed Clark, who proposes the legalization of drugs.
Right.
How can you condone that?
Because I think that your most basic possession is your own body, and you have the right to do with your own body what you want to do, okay? And if that includes putting drugs into it, that's your business.
Now,
okay?
just before you boo him out of the room, I'm not demanding you agree with him, but that position is supported by nobody less than the Nobel Prize winning Milton Friedman, who will tell you that the reason drugs are expensive is because they're illegal.
That's true. I don't believe in...
Now, this is not I'm not offering us, I'm just saying that. And also, ask yourself how much you're paying in taxes for all of those guys out there with badges chasing all of those kids with pot and drugs. At least can we agree that it's complicated?
I'm not pro-drugs at all. I'm very anti-drugs. I'm just telling you that you have a right to do what you want with your body.
It seems, though, that to say that it should be legalized is not what's correct, but it should be taken out of legalities altogether. It's every individual's responsibility to decide for themselves whether they want it.
That's the same as legal. Then. That's the same as legal. We're just playing with words then. If it's everybody's choice, then there's no law against it.
Yeah, but when you say legal, then everybody says there's going to be a law written that you have to use it, just like abortion or just like the other things, because that's what's said.
Yeah. Good point. We'll be back in just a moment.
Mr. Casey, I haven't read your book, but it seems to me your emphasis is upon people of our generation, what to do with the limited resources we may have, how to invest them. As far as I'm concerned, our greatest resources are our youth. I'm the mother of 5 children. In your book or in your mind, do you have any suggestions as to what the youth of this country should do, what careers they can pursue, how they can formulate their future, possibly not to find themselves in this mess that you are?
Boy, that's a great question. Believe it or not, there are parts of that book that are more devoted to philosophy than recommending a specific stock that you should buy to go up tomorrow morning, because it's all based on philosophy and understanding in that. The first thing the youth has to do is start thinking for themselves. I mean, just because everybody else is going off to college, I don't recommend they go off to college. Maybe they shouldn't. I'm sorry I went to college. It was a misallocation of 4 years of my time and $20,000 of my parents' money. Now, if I'd had somebody to tell me that, it might have helped somebody, and I hope that comment helps somebody that's in the position I was. I don't think they should think in terms of working for some big corporation or getting a job, quote unquote. They should think in terms of what good or service can I provide to the other 4.5 billion people on the planet. They should start thinking in terms of themselves as individuals and start taking responsibility for their own lives. And that'll solve the drug problem that a lot of them have too, but I'm not going to go on that.
I'm shopping in Chicago this weekend because my husband is a life insurance salesman in St. Louis and very successful. Could you please tell us a little bit more about Swiss life insurance?
Yes, the whole point is that the Swiss franc is the strongest currency on earth. The Swiss government has inflated their currency at a much lower rate than our government's inflated ours. And that's why since 1970, the Swiss franc has tripled in value relative to the US dollar. So if you're going to buy insurance, you should buy it in a currency that is not going to lose value with inflation. And that's the whole point of buying your life insurance in Swiss francs.
Is the caller there? Hello?
Yes?
Go right ahead, please.
I was wondering what he thinks of Milton Friedman's proposed negative income tax.
I don't believe we need an income tax at all. Now, I know that's a very radical statement, but first of all, we didn't have an income tax in this country before 1913. It was new in 1913. I don't believe we need one now. As far as his negative income tax is concerned, I suppose it's better than what we have right now, but I'm for abolishing the whole rotten superstructure.
You support the MX missile?
No, I don't. I don't support it at all. I believe that there's an immense amount of fat that should be cut out of the budget, and that's one of the most stupid propositions that I've heard of.
Right. Without an income tax, how would you pay for it? I assume you still think that some government is necessary to order the lives of men.
I explain that in the last chapter of my book. But let me say this, Phil. It's that if we need a government for anything, we need it to protect us against force. Okay? That's it. That's very objective.
All right. So we need a great big military machine then.
To the contrary. Today, the government does everything but protect you against force. We should have, if we have the government do anything, it should provide a police system for inside the country, an army for outside the country, and a court system so people can adjudicate without resorting to force. Nothing else. It does everything else but that. And frankly, I think that those three things could be better done by the free market besides.
Is the caller there? Hi.
How are you today? I have a question for Mr. Casey. I consider myself an average person. I make about $30,000 a year. I own a home in Park Forest. I've been 32 years old. I've been working very hard all my life to get what I've got. My problem is that I don't have anything to invest. I've got some equity in my home, car payment, home payment, Sears and Penny's charge cards, and for some reason, for my 32 years of my life, I haven't been able to get any money to invest.
Right. How many kids?
I've got two.
Yeah, and a station wagon with wood on the side, I bet.
No, I wish I could. Don't have the wood.
So, good point. The man, your wife is not working outside the home, is that right?
That's correct.
How much do you bring home of that 30, just curiously?
Oh, the checks are going to run, I think you got me with a rough question there. Normally they go right into the bank.
No, but I mean, what, after taxes, I wonder what your net income is.
Oh, I haven't figured it out, to tell you the truth. I guess on an $800 check, you'd be looking at somewhere around $513, $520, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a chance to speak with this man. You'll forgive me for breaking here. Really a good question, and thanks for asking it, and we'll speak to it in just a moment.
Okay.
The book is titled Crisis in Investing. It's the #1 selling book in America today. Its author is Douglas R. Casey, and he's with us. And that man is right. Most folks can't save anything.
Well, he better start trying. No, I'm not trying. Now, listen, I'm not trying to sound callous, but the thing is that he's still got some control of his own, of what's going on. He's got to start cutting back on his standard of living right now before it's forced upon him. That's the first thing.
He'll cut back on his standard of living so that he can save dollars, which will be only half as valuable today as they were yesterday.
He should cut
So
back
what he gets for himself when he cuts back on his standard of living is an opportunity to gamble on investments.
No, I think that just as the short term is becoming more and more unpredictable, the long term is becoming much more predictable. That's a little bit of a paradox, but it's true. I think that if, with the dollars that he saves, he starts following the kind of advice that I'm giving in that book, he's going to be one of the new class of millionaires in the years to come.
Are you taking your own advice? Are you investing?
I have for a long time.
If you are, wouldn't it be wise for everybody to follow your advice? Wouldn't that make you rich? And isn't that why you wrote the book?
No, because Bunker Hunt, one of the richest men in the world, tried to corner the silver market, and he found that as rich as he was, the market was bigger than he was, okay? So my advice isn't going to change the markets. I'm in such a tiny minority right now that if you follow my advice, you're being contrary to the mobs. You're not running with them.
Mr. Casey, what do you do for a living? Are you employed?
No, I manage my own money, is the main thing that I do. I mean, that's a candid answer. I also write an investment newsletter that updates people on this, and I'll probably write another book. It's clean work, no heavy lifting.
You come from a wealthy family.
That's true. No, but
why do you say that? That doesn't mean he's wrong, does it?
No, but let me tell you what it does mean. That happens to be an accident of birth, and I'm a great believer that you should. Who you're born to, whether you're black or white or American or Soviet, that's an accident of birth. I've gotten not one penny from my family. I answered your question. Yes, it is a wealthy family, but I've gotten zippo from them.
The general public is taught that real estate is a good investment. Are you saying
Tax havens. Some countries have no claim to fame other than their relative or absolute lack of taxes and regulations.
I don't believe in taxes.
Liechtenstein is one. Luxembourg, Bermuda, the Bahamas, Panama, and Costa Rica are countries where, your money will be...
No, it's possible. It's still possible today to structure yourself to go offshore so that a great portion of your income is tax-free. Capital gains, income, dividends, and so forth. That can still be done today. And it's out of the control of American politicians.
And we'll be back in just a moment. I'm glad you waited. Is the caller there?
Yes, I'm here. My husband and I did maybe a foolish thing last year, and I'd like to get Mr. Carey's opinion. We took all our money and bought whatever silver we could get. What does he think is going to happen to it? After we bought it, it seemed to plummet a little bit, and it's been...
How much did you invest?
$10,000.
And that's all you've got?
That was it.
And how much did you pay for an ounce?
We got some of it for like $22 an ounce, and some was a little bit more. Plus, we had some that we had paid face value for.
Yeah, Mr. Casey.
Well, you haven't done any worse than people that bought bonds at the same time. They're supposed to be a conservative investment. But the point is when you buy anything, ease into the market and don't buy while there's a feeding frenzy going on among the public. What should you do with the silver? You're going to be fully vindicated in 5 years. I can't speak about the next year, though. Things have their highs, things have their lows.
What do you think it'll go to?
Eventually, silver could be priced at more than gold, but we're talking 50 years.
You mean I have to wait 50 years to get my money?
No, well...
Listen, you'll probably be alive another 50 years from now.
I hope so, but I didn't want to wait that long.
Hang on a minute.
I'd like to know what makes Mr. Casey such an authority on any of this.
That's a good question. Look, the most important thing is I don't have a PhD in economics, and I think that's a very important thing for you to remember, because economics is something that is very understandable. It's not mystic. It's not lots of incomprehensible numbers. It's just the way people interact with each other. It's understanding the way the world works. So I'm somebody that's thought about it the same way that you can think about it, and your qualifications could be just as good as mine after you do a little bit of...
You're a college graduate?
Yes.
Where?
Georgetown University.
And you have a degree in?
Economics.
One thing I think that you made a statement that children shouldn't go to college because you wasted 4 years. I don't think you'd be where you are today if you didn't have the education you got in college, and I think you're a better man for it.
Well, so I can only speak for myself, and I'll have to disagree with you because I've had to unclutter my mind with most of the things that I was taught by these ivory tower professors in college. Maybe nice for some people to learn a trade like doctoring or lawyering, but for me, it was a misallocation.
Is the caller there?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm a recent widow.
So little time.
Yes, I was left a very small amount of insurance. What I'm wondering is, should I take that amount of insurance and purchase gold with it?
How much do you have?
$10,000.
Ma'am, start easing into the gold market. Slowly, buying, accumulating. Not all at once, because I don't know that gold isn't going to go down to $500 next year.
All right, now then, suppose that I do buy this gold, then when I need some money, what do? Slice off a little hunk of the gold and take it down to purchase my groceries, or what do?
The way I recommend people buy gold is in the form of gold coins. They're very liquid. It's very easy to get in them and get out of them at very low cost.
Is it Krugerrands?
Yes, that's the best way to do it.
Krugerrands?
I would say so. Yes, Krugerrands.
And I should contact a brokerage firm or something like that?
I list a lot of them in the back of my book. They're in the Wall Street Journal every day. Many sources.
You make the point that brokers aren't crazy for gold. In other words, your broker is not likely to be enthusiastic about helping you buy gold. Why is that?
Because he's living in the past. That's why. Because the broker has a vested interest in saying everything is rosy, everything's going up. That's what he does for a living.
But what's wrong? Why can't he bring that same rosy attitude to gold?
There are some brokers that do that, but they're in the great minority, Phil.
Well, why? They make just as much money, do they not, selling gold? Isn't the load the same?
The reason is that most brokers don't understand it. They haven't been educated into gold by their brokerage firms. They don't sell things they don't understand.
I'm concerned about the fact that you don't vote. What do you think would happen if all of us didn't vote? The whole country? What would happen to our country?
Suppose they gave a war and nobody came.
I think that's a different situation. I think we all have to play a part. We have to vote for who we think.
Well, I hope you read the book, and it's a question of what you believe personal ethics and morality and the political system and so forth is all about. I don't think that politics is a good thing. I don't think it's a moral and ethical way for people to relate to each other.
Granted, the government may be in trouble. We all know that there's things that are bad, but one for one abolishes unity. What happens to our nation as a country as a whole?
Yeah, there is a sort of defensive, I'm going to get mine, the hell with you sort of attitude to what you're saying, that, and it seems to deny any social responsibility.
No, untrue. Look, America is, what made this country great is we're the land of the individual. We share a common culture, okay? And lining up in back of our government on a road to perdition is what the Germans did during the last war. I don't want to see that happen. I want everybody to retake control of their own individual destinies, not shun it off to some goofy politician.
Okay, but that doesn't sit well with your call that we shouldn't vote. Taking control of ourselves has to include making a contribution to the society and to the people that we've asked to serve us publicly.
I think the way to make a contribution is by, doing what I'm doing, which is trying to change the ideas that people base their lives on as opposed to change the politicians.
Who believes you?
Can I answer the question just a moment? I just want to remind you, this doesn't make him right, but he has the #1 best-selling book in America today.
An amusing book to read. Clifford Irving almost wrote a book. Remember that?
But the point is, it isn't that easy to be #1 in the, not just on the list, #1. And he's been consistently #1 now for several weeks. That's unusual.
Okay, who believes you? Name somebody.
A particular
Who
name?
believes you?
Oh, a particular economist? Oh, all right. Friedrich von Hayek, Murray Rothbard, Harry Brown, Jerome Smith, Thomas Holt, James Dines.
And they've written so. They've come out publicly and written so, and they said they've read your book and they believe you. You're going to go out tomorrow.
Yes.
And we'll be back in just...
If you would like a written transcript of today's program, send $2.50 in check or money order to Donahue Transcripts, Box 2111, Cincinnati, Ohio 45201. Include the subject or the name of the guest with your request.
The book is titled Crisis Investing.
Mr. Casey, you stated you don't believe in taxes. If you don't take any money from your wealthy parents, you must have a source of income from your books or other sources. Do you pay taxes under protest, or do you not pay taxes?
No, I pay taxes just as if a mugger came up to me on the street and asked for 30 or 40 or 50% of my money, I'd give it to him. Same thing.
Mr. Casey, what do you suggest that the unemployed do during a Great Depression to invest?
I suggest, all right, well, it's a very worthwhile question. Look, that's why a depression is a good thing, because people reorient, and they're going to have to find something to provide to those other 4.5 billion people in the world. There's infinite demand.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
Announcing a new world car, Ford Escort with road-hugging four-wheel independent suspension, front-wheel drive, and rack and pinion steering. See the new Ford Escort at your Ford dealer now.
True Value Hardware stores where quality, selection, and service are why they're #1. True Value is more than just a name, it's their way of doing business.
Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode. We will see you again next week. And that's all for today.